If you find this podcast remotely interesting and helpful, then I ask that you please subscribe and share it with others. This is really just a passion project for me. It's an outlet for me to share what I am learning, which I really enjoy, and I would love it if it's actually helpful to people. So if you could please subscribe and share, it would make my wildest dreams come true. Thank you. All right, on to the episode. Microphone check, microphone check. Hey, what's up? This is the Intricately Woven Podcast, and I am Rachel Cancino-Neal, health restoration coach and nutritional therapy practitioner in training. I'm here with my hubby, Derek Neal.
Hey there.
Hello. Today we are discussing the question, how do you nourish your nervous system? We'll be also looking at the basic structure and functions of the nervous system to make sure that we understand why certain groups of food can be most beneficial in keeping your system strong. Are you ready?
I am.
All right, let's do this. Welcome back, ladies and gents. I'm excited that you're joining for yet another episode. How you feeling about that, Derek?
I'm pretty excited too.
Yeah, we've upgraded our studio to our bedroom closet.
Hey, it sounds a whole lot better.
I think so. I hope so. It's been such a learning curve, but I'm glad that we're doing it, and I'm glad for whoever's joining us on the other side of this, audio setting.
How many episodes have you done now?
We done?
Well,
I guess
I mean,
you haven't been there for everything. This is episode 8.
8, wow.
Yeah, so we are on episode 8 and talking about the nervous system. And this is the second to last episode that we're specifically looking at the nervous system.
Okay.
You know what I didn't fully know before that I thoroughly know now?
What is that?
That I am fascinated by the nervous system.
You really are.
I am amazed. So in my education with the Wellness Way Academy, they have this idea. The Wellness Way itself has this idea called the Swiss watch principle. And it talks about how all these gears work together and all of the systems of the body depend on each other. But the central one that kind of really is the primary responder, and that's what it is the nervous system. So I knew that going into this discussion, but the more research I've been doing and reading, the more I'm like, oh shoot, that's legit. Like, your nervous system is very important.
It's in charge of everything.
It's in charge of everything, and it lets us know so much information. So I love it, and I'm sure we'll come back to it because I'm sure I'll find something new that I'm like, I just gotta tell everybody about this. So anyways, but officially, we just have a couple more episodes before we connect the health of the nervous system with the health of your digestion, because the two really play off of each other. But again, all systems of the body play off of each other. Digestion is just a great indicator, another indicator of how your nervous system is doing. It'll be super fascinating. I can't wait. But for today's episode, we are going to do a really quick review before we get into our coffee shop talk, of course, because it's important. I'm a former educator, and it's called schema. You gotta build.
Schema.
It is called schema.
I've not heard you use that term before.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like where you introduce a concept, and you keep building off that concept while you're reviewing. And so this really is a teaching technique.
Schema.
Schema. To make sure that foundation is solid as you're building.
Well, we schema our children very well.
Oh man, we schema. Our life is just schema. Okay, but I've done this so often now that I think, Derek, you can take the reins of this part. And I'm not going to quiz you.
Okay.
But I'm just going to kind of quiz you because I'm going to ask you for a narration. Now, I told you last time we're a homeschooling family, and our curriculum that we follow is called Charlotte Mason. Woo woo! There's a lot of those followers out there. And it talks about narration, the power of narration, and allowing your student to tell you what it is that they're gathering, what information.
To become the teacher.
For them to become the teacher so that information becomes a part of who they are. So, Derek, what have you been taking away so far from these discussions of the nervous system, the parts of the nervous system, the responses of the nervous system? Tell us, Derek.
Well, let's just break it down to the bare bones basics.
Break it down now. Like that?
Well, you hit that. I'll go with the basics here.
Okay.
So you've got the central nervous system.
Yes.
And you've also got the peripheral nervous system.
Yes.
The central nervous system is kind of two parts.
Okay.
It's that brain and your spinal cord.
Uh-huh.
And that peripheral is going to be all of your senses. So what you see, you hear, you smell, you taste, you touch. Now, your peripherals take in the information first.
Yeah.
They send it to your spinal cord, into your nervous system, to your brain, and then your body can react and respond and tell you whether or not what you're seeing, hearing, feeling should be putting you more towards that rest and digest or into that fight or flight.
Look at you. I'm
High five for me.
so attracted to you right now.
Hit pause.
Okay, so let me ask you, are all the things and information that gets sent up to the central nervous system, is that only external or can it be internal cues as well? Like in your, let's say...
So like your stomach could be giving you some sort of signal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're feeling that.
Right. You're feeling that. Okay. Yeah. So internally you can feel it. Externally you can feel it. That information gets sent up. Well done. Yes. So that is, there you go. You did it. So now what we're really going to do, so that was just a review, because obviously we don't review everything. I try to only highlight what you're going to need to know for this particular conversation. So with that, we're going to look more closely at the basic functions and structure of the nervous system, so that you can be more thoughtful with the food choices that you make. All right.
Fantastic.
Shall we do this, Derek?
We shall.
Okay, here we go. All right, for this coffee shop talk, we're going to create this analogy that I hope everyone will understand and see its connection with the nervous system. I do in-person teachings and I use the same analogy, and pretty much everybody has had aha moments with it, so hopefully you listeners will also gain the same aha moments. Derek, do you know which analogy I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay, which one?
It is the one of the switchboard operator.
Yes. Did you know that before looking at the script?
I don't know that I had enough lead in for me to
That's true.
gather that.
Okay.
So.
But you would have known it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
If you would have given me a little more information of where you were going, then I would have known it.
Okay. Well, I personally really like this switchboard operator analogy. If you don't know what a switchboard operator is, please Google it and get an image. But basically, before the days of cell phones and even like direct contact with people, you had to call like an in-between person to relay you to the next part. You know, if you needed to call your friend, you would have to call the operator to connect me with so and so and so. Okay, so we're gonna take that idea with this switchboard operator, and I feel like I need to have like a dreamy like sound effect, like. We're going to use our imaginations. I feel like the Mr. Rogers, you know, like where the trolley's going into the...
See, you had that. I had the Twilight Zone music playing.
Okay. So, we are going to play out this whole, like, switchboard operator scene and what would happen. Okay?
All right.
So, Derek, you're going to be the caller in the situation, and I'm going to be the switchboard operator.
Okay.
Okay.
I got it.
So... when you're doing your call, you just say, operator, would you connect me with, and then tell me where you want to go. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, so think of a person or a location that you're trying to call.
Operator.
No, that's me. Hang on. Please place your call. Boop, beep, boop, boop, boop. Ring, 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 ring. Actually, it would be one of those. Okay, Derek, please place your call.
This is me picking up the phone and connecting with the operator.
Okay, and I am the operator. Operator speaking. To whom may I direct your call?
Operator, please connect me with Bob Ross.
Okay, so pause. Now, as the operator, you have just informed me that you want to be connected with, out of all people, Bob Ross.
Hey, it was the first person that came through my mind.
Okay, so now I have been informed what you want and who you want to connect with.
Mm-hmm.
Now my step as a switchboard operator is to get a cord. Pretend that's my cord.
Got it.
And
You're
to
gonna
connect you,
it.
right?
Yes.
Okay. So is that it? Are we done now? That I've connected it? Or how do you know that the call actually went through on your end?
Well, I would only know if I begin to hear ringing.
Okay.
And then Bob Ross answers the other line.
Right. Okay. So there's got to be some kind of communication signal that you have gotten connected with where you're trying to get to.
I start the communication. I start the traveling information to the operator.
Yes, and the operator says, I got you. I'll connect you to Bob Ross.
Following through, that communication is sent to another location.
Yes.
And Bob Ross is answering the phone.
Yes. Okay. Now, let's think of some kind of task you are wanting Bob Ross to accomplish for you.
So I would say something like, hey, Bob, would you please paint me a picture with happy little trees?
Okay, now you have given Bob Ross the message. He has heard it, and now if he's able to do this actual task of painting happy little trees, then we can say you've had successful communication, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do a recap of the parts. That was an awful role play because we actually just explained it more than role played it. But that's okay. Let's give a recap of what happened from you placed the call to Bob Ross doing his action.
Okay, so I pick up the phone.
Yes.
I'm connected with the operator.
Uh-huh.
I'm communicating with the operator that I want to talk to somebody else.
Yes.
Operator then connects me to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Their phone rings. They pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
We then are able to communicate.
Right.
Because of all these other things that have occurred for that communication to happen. And in the end, I get a painting of happy little trees.
Right. So you communicated what you wanted. Once Bob Ross picks up his side and he does the task, then you can say he successfully heard the communication and fulfilled the task.
Yes. So basically, I wanted one thing accomplished, a painting of happy little trees.
Right.
But there were like 6 to 10 different things that had to occur before that one thing.
Right. So there was a whole system in place, right? So we just got an awesome picture of your nervous system in that and how it functions essentially, right? There's a communication process that has to happen, and it has to go from one part, a stimulation, and then it has to be fulfilled as it's communicating throughout the nervous system. And we're going to get to that in the nerd out moment. But now let's pretend that something either in the system itself or the function was off. Like the caller, you, Derek,
Me,
you had like a broken communication with the operator, or the operator wasn't really fully attuned to what you were saying and she connected you with the wrong person, or the connection cords were weak or frayed. What would happen if either the system itself was broken down or some of the functions weren't completely working?
Well, the message that I was trying to send may be lost.
Right.
Somewhere along the way. I may not be connected.
So there might be just miscommunication, possibly, or if like the equipment wasn't fully functional, then it wouldn't even be able to fulfill its job, like if the cord was frayed.
Right.
Right? So in a really similar way, our nervous system's structure can be negatively impacted and the functions can be altered.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already talked about some of these things that can be of negative impact to the nervous system. Things like chronic stress, infections. We talked about trauma and emotional injuries. Emotional injuries, something like grief.
Yeah.
We can also add into that gut imbalances and poor digestion that can bring negative impacts into our nervous system. food also plays a key role in the health and function of the nervous system. So there's certain foods that can be more supportive and it can support good communication, while others help the integrity of the system. And you really want, obviously, both parts of it so that the communication is doing well and the system itself is doing well. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right. To understand what kind of foods could be most beneficial for you, we're going to step into the nerd out moment to learn some terms. Then we'll look at what you can do on a practical food level. But just a heads up, I'm not going to be telling you like specific foods, but we're going to be focusing more like food categories, so you can be more equipped in choosing the food needs that you have. If you are wanting customized food lists for yourself and your needs, I do one-on-one consultations for that. There's a lot that actually goes into that, so I don't want to just be like, everybody eat this, because all your bodies are different. So I do offer one-on-one consultations. Link is in the description for that. But yeah, we're going to be focusing on food categories more than on specific foods. So, all right. But first, we're going to nerd out to learn about the structure of the nervous system. Derek, do you know why I want you to learn the structural names of this stuff?
Why to learn the structural names?
And like the basic functions?
No.
Okay. That's fair enough, because I'm sure there's other people like, why is she doing this? She just wants to. I do just want to.
Maybe a hunch of then you can actually have a conversation with your own doctor.
I mean, that's part of it. Yeah, for me, if you can learn a little bit about the different parts, it gives you information of like, we're going to get into in a moment, but like if your neurotransmitters are struggling, well, what kind of foods might be more supportive of neurotransmitters? If you understand what their function is and how they need to move throughout the nervous system, then you might have a better idea of like, oh, maybe if I eat these kind of foods.
It also gives you a good starting point on how to research more.
Yes. And so again, the whole purpose of Nerd Out Moment is to give you some of those technical words so that you can do better research for yourself, because I know some of you are interested in that. By having these words, the way you can research is so much better. And I intend on future episodes to kind of walk you through of what you can do, how you can read a research paper. I taught myself how to do it because I was determined to learn how to do it for myself and not just take somebody else's word for it. So I'm not like a professional. I would not say that, but my ability to do it has gotten better. And one reason is because I have technical words. So that's the purpose of the Nerd Out Moment. I'm giving you some of these technical things so that you can maybe help yourself in your own research. Okay, so with that all that said, we have the nervous system, the wonderful, beautiful nervous system. The nervous system is made up of nerve cells. The technical name is neurons. These team up to form nerve tissue, and that will team up to form the nervous system. In order for communication to happen throughout the nervous system, nerve cells need to be able to build up enough electromagnetic energy to send impulses from the body of the cell to the synaptic end, and then have enough thrust to make it across the synaptic cleft. We're going to go through all of that together.
Now, just to make sure, electromagnetic, you're talking electricity.
Our body has electrical pulses.
Okay.
Right?
Yep. Just want to clarify that.
You're following. We have our own electromagnetic fields around us, which is why if somebody walks into the room, you can feel like negative energy, like your body is putting out certain kind of flows, certain kind of energies, and our nervous systems actually interact. All right, so to understand a broad concept of the nerve cells, hold up your hand like you're about to give a nice big high five.
Got it.
Wonderful. Now look at your fingertips down to your elbow.
Fingertips to the elbow.
And say, Hello, visual aid of a nerve cell.
Hello, visual aid of a nerve cell.
All right, we're going to start with the palm.
Palm.
Look at that palm. Okay? This is the representative of the cell body.
Cell body.
Called the soma, right? In the center would be the nucleus, and then around that we have the soma, or the cell body. Okay? Now, the cell body has like all the ingredients that nerve cells going to need to make things happen. Things like energy, proteins, things that are needed for that nerve cell to be alive and doing its functions.
Okay.
Okay? Now, wiggle your fingers.
Wiggling.
Okay. Now, those fingers are representing the dendrites of the nerve cells.
Okay.
Dendrites are like the main feelers of the nerve cell. Got it?
So it's the peripheral of the nerve cell.
Let's not get confusing here. Dendrites are your like feelers.
Feelers.
Right? Hold up your other hand. Wiggle those fingers.
Uh-huh.
Your dendrites can have communications, right? So you have communication that can happen between these cells. Okay? It's not always dendrite to dendrite, but that is one way a cell can communicate. Okay? Now, look at your forearm.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have both hands up anymore, just one. Sorry, Derek. All right, take a look at that forearm.
Got it.
That forearm is going to remind us of the axon, or the tail of the nerve cell.
Sail.
Of the nerve cell. Okay? The axon's main job is to carry impulses, or it's the stimulation that starts in the nerve body, and it gets sent down through the axon to be carried out.
Okay.
Now, let's pretend that you have maybe big old bangle cuffs around your arm, your forearm, okay, that are evenly spaced out. Let's say my arm might fit like 3, okay? These can represent, if we have these cuffs around our arms with evenly spaces in between, can represent the myelin sheath that are around these axons. Okay, myelin sheath have a couple different purposes. One, I imagine them like the Mario Kart power-ups.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's like still a game. That was like, I'm having
yeah.
flashbacks like high school. But you know, you hit those power-ups and get like another surge of energy.
Yeah.
That's essentially how those myelin sheath work. And they have to have spaces in between because those impulses need more electrical currents to be able to pour in. So there's spaces in between. It gives enough energy for the impulse to go from the cell body, get enough energy, enough of that electromagnetic energy to get all the way down. Mm-hmm. And those myelin sheath will help give this surge while allowing more energy poured in through the gaps. Mm-hmm. It also serves as protection for that cell.
Okay.
Okay? Now, if we take a look at the elbow, give that a little elbow tap.
Taparoo.
That's representing our synaptic end of a nerve cell. The synaptic end, I see that your arm's getting tired, so you can put your arm down.
Yeah, I already did.
Wow, I must have strong shoulders here. Okay, the synaptic end is the last bit of the nerve cell, and it's where the electrical charges needs to be really built up enough for the communication can happen between another cell, an organ, or a muscle. Okay, so all that energy, all that electromagnetic force needs to be big enough for an impulse to be sent across, because there's like gaps in between. Mm-hmm. Okay, in between the cells. If enough of this charge has been built up from cell body to axon to synaptic cleft, then it can surge across the synaptic cleft from the synaptic end
to another synaptic end?
To another cell, either the dendrite site or on the body.
Oh, so it wouldn't go
or can have direct connection to a muscle or an organ. It all depends on where it's going.
Okay.
So just like, again, going back to that collar and operator, right? There's different connection points all over the place. Some of the connections, when we're talking about the nervous system, goes directly from nerve cell to an organ or a muscle. Other ones have to go, like, hop to another nerve cell before they reach their location.
Okay.
Okay. So if enough of that charge is built up And there's the correct amount. It's called the action potential for that impulse to make it all the way down. Impulse just means that there's been stimulation. It's caused like this disturbance in the cell where there's been enough of electrical charge. So now it's like where you have two magnets that's repelling each other. Mm-hmm. That's a similar idea to what is happening, that the charges repel each other all the way down the axon. If enough has been built up, then a neurotransmitter that's like traveling around in this vesicle. I imagine it like a little vehicle. Mm-hmm. So we have this neurotransmitter then transported through this little vesicle. If there's been enough buildup at the synaptic end, then it gets to merge on the synaptic ends where your elbow's at, and then it can be released and then received by, let's say, a nerve cell. Mm-hmm. Now, just like our operator caller situation, just because it's been released and sent over to the other side doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be effective communication. The other part of that nerve cell, that muscle, that organ, needs to be able to receive it and respond to that information. Okay? So if all goes well, this communication is beautiful, and that whatever needs to be translated has happened, and that's with a functional, healthy nervous system, neurotransmitters, all the energy is there. There's things that can interrupt that, and that's what we talked about before. Right. With infections, chronic stress, right? These are disruptors. Okay. Now, as you are looking at your arm, I want you to just pay attention, not to your skin, but to your arm hair. Okay. And that arm hair is a lovely representation of the cell membrane that's around your cell. A cell membrane is like the coating around it. And that little guy on a cell is about 1 hair thick. That tiny little guy protects your cells. They're strong enough to hold the form, but they need to be mobile enough for changes to be made. Right? So can you see how, as we're talking about this, how the operator really creates a picture of what's like happening in the system?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the integrity of the nerve cell, the myelin sheath, like we talked about, if you had like those cuffs around your axon, we talked about neurotransmitters, we talked about impulses, all of these things, from the structure to the function of a nerve cell, is highly dependent on what you're eating, and then how well you can digest what you're eating. So now we're going to take a look at how you can actually nourish your nervous system, considering all these things that we just learned. Okay. Okay, so if you tuned out for the nerd out, which according to my analytics, people can actually tune out of that part and they come back for this part. So welcome back to the part, what you can do.
What you can do.
Yes. Again, I went through the more detailed parts of the names because we're going to see those come up as I'm talking about the foods that are beneficial, and there's certain foods that are more beneficial for certain parts, and it's quite fascinating and complicated. Again, I am not going to say that I am the expert in all of this stuff, but I have read quite a bit. I have my resources there for references if you want to take a look at that. It's all really interesting, but I don't know all the answers in the world. I hate to say that, but I don't. So I can give you, though, some good ideas here. Okay. All right, ready? High five.
High five.
I was just teasing.
Oh.
I just wanted you to do a high five and remember, hello, nerve cell.
Hello, nerve cell.
Okay. So wiggle those fingers.
Would be dendrites.
Those fingers are your dendrites.
The palm is the nerve body or soma.
Soma, yep. And then your forearm.
Axum or axon?
Axon. And then the elbow. Synaptic end. And if we pretend we have bangle cuffs on our arms, we have myelin sheath. Yep. So they're all the basic structures right there. Okay. Now, you can put your hand down if you had your hand up still. Your entire nervous system, from the nerve cells to the dendrites to all the parts of the nerve cell, they're really highly dependent on fat, especially when we're talking about the brain. The brain is like the biggest like user of all the fats. Okay. The membrane integrity. So again, I said look at your forearm, because then you can see that all the hair to remind you of the membrane around that cell. That membrane might be really thin, but it's highly important. It's highly important that it has the right amount of integrity in order to keep things out that needs to be out and let things in that needs to be let in, and help the cell structure. So the membrane integrity, the myelin sheath, when we were looking at the form, those cuffs around, the myelin sheath, the dendrites, your fingers, depend on cholesterol and fatty acids, which are the breakdown products of fats. And some of those parts are more dependent on things like omega-3s, omega-6s. You want to pay attention to those ratios. And also, you really need to avoid trans fats. So when we're talking about fats and fatty acids, I'm not talking about trans fats, which are like your body has a hard time recognizing it, processing it, getting it out. Okay, but when we're talking about healthy fats, and more in their natural state. And I want to remind you again, I'm not about to tell you, I want you to eat this and I want you to eat that. That is not my goal here. But you can look up the ideas of what kinds of foods are good sources of things like omega-3s and omega-6s. And when you're looking at that list, really incorporate more of those omega-3s, generally speaking, because most people do not get enough omega-3s. Okay? So the omega-3s have a lot of different functions that happen throughout your body, but our body nervous system is dependent on that, especially like brain health and the integrity. So you really want a nice balance of the kind of fats that you're eating. So again, the whole nervous system, from nerve cells, the entire system really depends on fats, and cholesterol is a big part of that. Also, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, I'm going to start eating more fats. And I'm not saying you have to go fat crazy, but I'm just going to start incorporating more fats into my diet. You do want to be aware that if you have problems with digesting fats, or you have no gallbladder, you will need extra support to break down fat. Okay? Or if you're someone that's been avoiding fat for a long time, right? That has its own set of things, rules, of reintroduction. But you really want to start really slow, just to make sure, because basically you have to wake up certain organs again to see if they're ready to take it on. So you don't want to go from, I never eat fat, to I'm going to keto diet. We're going to talk more about that kind of stuff in digestion, but you really want to be careful in doing something like that. Do a slow process, slowly introduce maybe one meal, upping a fat content, or at a snack, having a handful of nuts with that piece of fruit. So finding ways to increase your healthy fats, quality fats, common ideas like avocados and olives and nuts and these different things. Again, though, I'm not going to say everybody go eat these things, because you might be allergic or sensitive to this stuff, and that would not be serving your body well. So you just want to be mindful. But in general, though, if you have no gallbladder, or if you really struggle with digesting fats, Derek, do you know any kind of symptoms if you're not digesting fats well?
Your stool is very oily.
Yeah. So if you look in the water and the water looks oily after you've had a bowel movement, you're not digesting your fats very well. If your poo is very floaty, you may not be digesting your fats very well. If your poo is like a pale color, you may not be digesting your fats very well. Those are all signs that that you're struggling. So you will more than likely need additional support for your body in order to break down those fats, but you definitely want to start off slow so your body has a chance to recalibrate. Okay. You also want to make sure, along with those fats, you're getting some good quality proteins, because your neurotransmitters depend on your proteins, specifically the amino acids that come from proteins. Okay. There are 10 essential amino acids that our bodies require. Essential means that we have to eat it. Our bodies do not produce it. Okay. Neurotransmitters depend on many of these to be created. Animal proteins are the easiest for our bodies to break down and are the most bioavailable, which means it's the easiest for our bodies to assimilate into itself. If you are a vegetarian, you need to be incredibly strategic to make sure you're getting all 10 essential amino acids daily. which is pretty tricky. And there's other things you need to be mindful of as well. But when we're talking about the protein content, you really want to make sure you're getting all 10 essential amino acids so that your neurotransmitters can be created properly. Eating the protein is step 1. Digesting is step 2, which is why we will be talking about digestion and this important relationship it has with the nervous system health. And if you are feeling like you don't digest your your proteins very well, you might have like a sense of like heaviness after a meal, after you eat like a protein-rich meal. You can try taking 1 or 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar or some lemon juice before you start eating. That just helps your stomach acids start breaking that down. Again, something else we'll talk about later on. But if you just know you have a problem breaking down protein, try a tablespoon or so of apple cider vinegar. See how you do. Okay? If you do that and you feel super nauseous, stop. There are other things that are going on. Again, I do one-on-one consultations to fine-tune such things. So that description is there. But really, even something so basic as taking apple cider vinegar can make somebody nauseous. It does tell you information. You also, people, work with me here. You need water. Derek,
Water?
what's the biggest struggle in this freaking house?
Getting children to drink enough water.
I wish if you have like this secret tip that your child loves water. We have 2 boys. One does pretty good. The other, I don't know what it is. He just doesn't want to drink it. And I'm not going to go on to all of it. This is not the time nor place. But, yeah. So I don't know how to do that. I'm trying my best here. But you do want to get water. Water is really important. And quality water is very important.
So water just out of the tap?
Oh, man. Let me tell you. If you can get a filter, your goal is to eliminate as much toxins as possible because our water has a lot more than just that H2O in it. It's got a lot of contaminants. It's got a lot of pollutants. It's got a lot of like pharmaceuticals. There's a lot of stuff in tap water. This is including your shower water, your bath, this is your house water. But when we're talking about drinking the water, get the best filter you can to eliminate as many toxins as possible. But you also want to make sure that there's minerals inside that water. So if you have a reverse osmosis system, just make sure that it's not eliminating the minerals. I know older models used to eliminate and not replace. I think newer models tend to do that. So you just want to make sure that you are getting minerals. These minerals are important because those impulses that we talked about, I said there was stimulation that happens in that nerve cell. It's got to make it all the way down. It has to have enough electrical magnetic energy to get there. Those depend on minerals. Do you know which minerals?
Electrolytes?
Electrolytes. You read it.
I did read it.
So electrolytes, think electricity. These are your electrical charges. This is not just for when you're, Gatorade it up. Don't Gatorade it up, please. I mean, to eat, you all make your own choices. I beseech you, do not do that. I implore you. I'm just going to throw all the words out, just in case. Doing like a pinch of Celtic sea salt in your water or true Himalayan pink salt into your water can give you the minerals that your body needs. For some people, that's enough. For others, you might need more. There are like concentrated seawater drops that you can do, and that just has all those minerals, but has them in balance because the balance of the minerals is really important too. Okay, so we talked about fats, the cholesterol that you need from those fats as well. Don't be scared of that. That's another topic for another day. But your body absolutely needs that cholesterol for the cell membrane integrity, for the dendrites, for the myelin sheath. They depend on those cholesterol and the fatty acids. Okay? Mm-hmm. The best quality you can get. Okay? So if you want to do a quick Google search, best quality fatty acids. Again, a big part of this, you have to be able to break it down. So take it slow if you have not had fat in a long time. Okay? Or if you don't have a gallbladder, you're going to need more support to break down that fat properly. We talked about eating proteins, making sure you're getting all 10 essential amino acids. Big users of that are the neurotransmitters. They need those building blocks, those amino acids that come from proteins. They need those to be created. We talked about hydrating, making sure you're drinking good quality water. That means the best kind of filtered water you can get that have minerals inside of it. All right. I gave you lots of tips, I feel like, maybe today. I think that was longer than the other parts.
No, I think it was.
But again, if you are like aching for one-on-one advice and you're thinking, Rachel, but what about this? Or what if I have this condition? You may look at my website, intentionalrestoration.net. There you may find how to contact me to schedule a one-on-one consultation. There it is.
It is well worth it because I've seen the research that she pours into these. I do. Incredible.
I do. So if you are just curious and you want to look at that, there's the website. Yeah. So Derek, any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
I think it's just fascinating beginning to see how, you can eat food and drink water for your muscles, like to become stronger or have energy.
Like proteins are usually
associated
with
that's
that.
Whenever you think eating healthy, that's what you think about.
Yeah.
So you can do physically active things.
Yeah.
But not to change that I don't know, the story that you're told of like you eat certain things in order for your brain to work better.
Right.
Or your spinal cord, like all these smaller details. Yeah, muscle is a larger piece, but within that muscle, there's a lot of other things that go on.
Yeah. Well, you saying that, I do want to point out, one, gut health is a big part of what your nervous system can get access to. Certain vitamins that are produced from the gut bacteria that are in colon. But also, if you have children, again, I implore you, give your children fat and protein. And again, preferably that animal protein because their bodies can use that way easier. But if you recall, 90% of their nervous system, those neural networks, are established by the age of 5. Their brains absolutely need the fat and they absolutely need the protein for the protection and the building up of this nervous system. Okay? So, I didn't insert that anywhere else. I almost forgot, so I'm glad whatever you just said jogged that memory. But please, feed the children and...
if you feed them that, would that be then allowing their brain to use schema? Building on...
Yeah. Allowing their brains... It would help their connections. It helps them to learn, for sure. Maybe we'll talk about more of that. I do intend on having a children's series to kind of highlight more of these things as I've learned just various stuff through the education. So, yes, that will be coming. I haven't developed that yet. But yeah, we'll be having a children's special and looking at how do we help our kids the best. So
that'll be fascinating.
Yes, I think so. All right, but in the next episode, we'll be wrapping up this discussion about the nervous system by looking at how a biblical perspective can have a positive impact on all those like nerves that we have, right? Derek and I, we're going to give you a bit more insight into the season we're at currently and how biblical perspective has played a role in our calming of the nervous system, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It is a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
Growing.
Yeah.
Growing.
Yeah. So I am looking forward to that conversation. It's going to be more unscripted, and we're going to have a conversation with you about that. So I'm looking forward to it. All right. Anything else?
I don't think so. Let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, I hope you join us again next time. I am Rachel.
And I'm Derek.
And we are hoping to help you put the pieces of your health together. Talk to you soon.
See you next time.